thank you very much for inviting me. The reason we're all a bit late coming from Blackburn is entirely my fault. We have a rule in my office that everything that goes wrong is my fault. It means that nobody falls out and just blame me. It works actually. It's a method of authority. Can I say a big thank you to my colleagues from the Independent Alliance Parliamentary Group? Adam Hussain from Blackburn, who just hosted a fantastic meeting there. I live in Corbyn, we've got a high The other two members of the group, Shogat Adam is busy doing other things in Leicester today, and Zara Sultan is out of the country today, but we also support and greetings to all of the meetings that we're doing. I want to say thank you for inviting me. Michael, thanks very much for not just today, but all the efforts you've put in all the other places, and I just love that refrain, from the ripple to the sea. Michael Adelaide will be free. So well done, Michael, and Palestine, well done for all your work and the fantastic achievement you achieved in the election results earlier this year. What's more, there's much more to come in the future. So I think we just need to think for a moment of the opportunities we've got in the future. When I stood for election in 2024 as an independent candidate in Islington North, that was a result of several years of a war of attrition with the Labour Party about whether or not the local party had any rights or not. We were wrong, it turns out they didn't have any rights at all. And I was then prevented from being a Labour candidate, and I said the people should decide, and stood as an independent, and we won the election with a very large majority. And we won it because of the message we put forward, as did my colleagues in the Independent Alliance Group also put forward a message. Yes, Gaza was a key part of it, but it wasn't the only issue. There were many other issues, not least the levels of child poverty in this country, the levels of underpayment of young people in our society, and the chronic housing crisis that affects the whole country. And so we won as independents, and we'd never met each other before, and so I contacted my colleagues and invited them all to my office, poured out the tea, and we had a chat. And we agreed on how we'd operate, that we would operate as an independent group, we would be ferocious with the government on issues of poverty and injustice, two-child benefit cap, PIP payments and many others, but we would also be forensic and detailed on anything to do with Gaza and Palestine. And so, we've challenged the government at every conceivable opportunity on Gaza and Palestine. I just want to give you one little message if I could for about a minute. Well, I turn on my phone and I read you a message that I receive every day. My good friend Mr. Barghouti, member of the Palestine National Assembly, independent, every morning he sends me a text message. This morning, the Israeli army killed 67 civilians in Gaza, including 18 who were seeking humanitarian aid. 5 more Palestinians, including 2 children, died of starvation caused by the Israeli siege of Gaza. I acknowledge that and thank you for it. Thanks, dear Joe. 322 Palestinians, including 124 children, died of starvation since Israel imposed its illegal and inhuman siege on Gaza, preventing humanitarian aid, including food, medicines and clean water, from reaching the starving population. And that's the kind of message that we all get every single day. 60,000 people have been killed in Gaza. And when we've challenged the British government on this, they kept on from the beginning of October 23 onwards, supplying arms to Israel. In fact, the arms deliveries from Britain to Israel increased when Starmer became Prime Minister and continued to grow. And when the International Court of Justice made its ruling, which it did, on acts of genocide, I was there. The South African government asked me if I'd go as an observer to the hearing, which I did. It was poignant, fascinating, deeply moving for lots of reasons, one of which was that, as I'm sure many in this room spent years campaigning against apartheid in respect of South Africa, to see that finally a form of political justice had come when the country that had thrown off the yoke of apartheid was now determined to throw off the yoke of occupation for the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank. Well done, South Africa. And thank you. Since then, through the Hague Group, which was set up by Preston International, which is a uniting body of left organisations around the world, we set up the Hague Group of now 13 nations who are a UN bloc to demand an end to genocide and support for the Palestinian people. So these initiatives are quite important. When we challenged the British government on the arms sales, they first of all said they were only there for self-defence. And then they said they wouldn't be used for breaches of humanitarian law. And then when we challenged further on a supply of components for the F-35 jets, they said, well, we can't stop them because we don't know where they go. So I said, are you serious? Are you for real? You're telling me you're making components for a highly sophisticated fighter jet and you don't know where they end up? I thought these things were marked to within an inch of their lives. They're complete nonsense. They've carried on with supply of those parts because they don't want to upset what they call the global supply chain. They've also continued the use of the RAF base at Equatorial for overflying of Gaza, and one of the privatised pilots forgot to turn the transponder off, so we know exactly where they fly and what they do. So I asked David Lammy if, since they gathered all this information at RAF Equatorial, would they kindly pass all of it on to the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court to help their prosecutions? He said no. So I said, where is it going then? Can't tell us. Well, we know damn well where it's going. We know what it's all about. It's all been about supporting Israel's military activity in Gaza, which has resulted in the deaths of 60,000 people. And so we are absolutely resolute on demanding ceasefire, withdrawal of all Israeli forces from Gaza, the West Bank and the Jordan Valley, and an end to the Zionist idea of taking over the whole of Palestine and the expulsion of the Palestinian people into the Sinai or to wherever else. The work that we do, and I'm determined that your party.uk will be a voice for peace and a voice for solidarity. It's not up to us to tell the Palestinian people what form their lives, their state of affairs should take in the future. When you're in solidarity with the struggle, it means you're in solidarity with them to decide their own course of action and their own future. It's quite an important distinction. So I want our party to be a party, a voice for peace around the world. And earlier this month, I was in Japan for the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the bombardment of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Deeply moving experience, talking to very elderly survivors. This very elderly gentleman, aged 95, still very astute, very intelligent guy, put his arm around me and through interpreters said, do everything you can to save anybody else from the horror of a nuclear explosion and the deaths that they have. So with every word, I hope that our party will be this resolute party for peace and justice around the world, and we'll look at the causes of war. And we won't blame people who are victims of war in Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Libya, Syria, wherever else. And when they seek a place of safety in Western Europe or in this country, we won't blame them for the underfunding of schools, the underfunding of hospitals. We are internationalists and we are humanitarians, and that is the way that we're going to be. And so I'm sure, like many of you, you share my horror at the way in which all of our mainstream media beyond belief about refugees in our society, and they create numbers that you couldn't dream up. Ludicrous figures, ludicrous things they're doing out. And then it ends up with a sort of blame culture. Well, I like to think of myself, as I'm sure all of you do, as a human being. I'm pleased I live in a society where I have never had to seek asylum, never had to escape, never had to seek refuge. I'm pleased. I'm sure there are some in this room that haven't had that joy and haven't had that privilege and have been forced to go to seek asylum and seek a life somewhere else. And they're making a wonderful contribution to our society. Can't we, instead of developing this vile blame culture against minorities in this country, start acting like human beings and humanitarians and recognise the contributions they have to our society? Our transport industries and so much else. And for those that are susceptible to this barren, mean, horrible message from Farage and his cronies, I just say this. Asylum seekers didn't cause redundancies amongst teaching assistants in schools. They didn't underfund A&E departments. They didn't cause hospital waiting lists. They didn't allow the private rented market sector to go rampant. They are not the cause of the problems. The cause of the problems is we're in austerity 2.0 on top of the 15 years of austerity we've already had. We've had frozen wages, we've had falling living standards, we have high levels of youth unemployment or underemployment, and we have massive levels of debt, particularly amongst young people who've ever been to university. So we need to develop both a campaign and an economic argument, which is about bringing people together, which is about bringing people together to win those better conditions, to win those working rights, and to ensure that there is proper funding of local government, health and all the other services. But we don't do it merely by being on councils or in Parliament or wherever else. Last week I was in Scotland and I did events in Glasgow and Edinburgh and then at the borders. And the first thing I did when I arrived was to go to the Village Inn Hotel in Glasgow, just next to the river, and I went there. And I was a bit surprised when I got out of the car, started walking. There was two people come up to me and introduced themselves as the company managing director and the manager of the hotel. I said, okay, nice to see you. He said, hope you have a good visit. I said, well, I'm actually going into the hotel. I said, oh, where are you going? I said, to the picket line over there to join the strike. Because a group of hotel workers, fed up with their conditions, fed up with their wages, fed up with their insecurity, fed up with the danger they face going home late at night after a shift in a bar or whatever else they've been doing in the hotel. They took strike action, they won, and the speech given on behalf of the strikers by the leading shop steward, she was 19 years old when they won the strike. Well done, the young women. Your party, .uk, to be working with union activists like that, with people at the workplace and with people within the community, because we have to work with people to give them hope and to give ourselves hope. There's so much else I could talk about, but I don't want to go on forever. I just want to say something about the levels of poverty within our society. The two-child benefit cap was brought in by Ian Duncan-Smith bizarrely after we'd had a visit to Glasgow and witnessed horrendous levels of poverty in the East End of Glasgow. So he gets back to London and decides the solution to this problem is to make families smaller. So he's going to make families smaller by impoverishing the children in large families as a lesson to them and their parents not to have so many children in the future. I mean, it's hard to explain. It is slightly mad, actually. Or it's slightly wrong. And so they brought in this two-child benefit cap. Utterly disgusting and disgraceful thing to do. The simple act of removing that cap would cost about
1.3, 1.4 billion per year. It would take hundreds of thousands of children out of the desperate levels of poverty they're in at the moment. It wouldn't solve all their problems, but it would be a sign of a step forward. This government, Starmer's government, the Labour government, not only refused to do that, they suspended MPs that voted for it from the Parliamentary Labour Party, and sort of went to war against anyone in the Labour Party that wanted to end child poverty. What have we come to in this world that we allow this child poverty to go on and don't do the simple thing about it? The next thing they did was to say they wanted to save £5 billion a year from the personal independence payments budget. How? By simply reducing access to personal independence payments. Now, anyone in this hall today that's in receipt of personal independence payments will know two things. One is they're very hard to get. It's a very, very bureaucratic system, hard to keep it. But secondly, it's absolutely crucial to your independent living, being able to dress yourself, cook for yourself, go to the bathroom, all the basic things that we all want to do. They tried to take it away. Rebellion against it, yes. They stopped that. They tried to then throw it on to the next generation and then put forward a bill which was amended so many times in the last half hour in Parliament. I defy any MP that voted for it to know what they were voting for, but I knew, and my colleagues knew exactly what we were voting against, because we were not the people with disabilities should get or shouldn't get. What we should do is have a commission led by the organisations of people with disability to look at the levels of poverty amongst those with disabilities and how the system could be improved and how their life chances and opportunities could be improved. Because if we don't do that and we don't fund that and other care services properly, what then happens is a member of the family or a neighbour or a friend has to give up their job, give up their life, give up their career to care for someone they love. It's nearly always a woman. What's happening is by underfunding care, we're actually imposing that burden on families that are already suffering. Let's have, alongside the National Health Service, National a local example to me of how privatisation works in the NHS. About a year ago, my local hospital wrote to me and said, we'd like to consult you on the future of lab testing in the hospital. I thought, that's a bit odd. Works all right at the moment, I've got no problem with it. It seems very good. They said, no, it's not as efficient as it could be, and we're going to link up with other health authorities to run a better service. Okay, maybe. They said, yes, and we've got this company that's going to run it for us. I said, oh, okay. So somebody's come in and offered to run the whole service. So they said, do you support this? I said, absolutely not. Absolutely no way. It should be a public service and should be publicly owned, publicly run like the rest of the NHS. They then assured me, don't worry, it won't make any difference at all. The staff will be the same, they'll be properly treated, and everybody's going to be much better off as a result of it. So I was kind of thinking this thing through. This is a bit of an oxymoron. They're all going to be better off, but somebody's going to be making a profit out of it as well, and it's not going to cost any more. Something's got to give there. A year later, I'll be on the picket line on Wednesday supporting a strike of the lab testing workers for decent pay and decent conditions and return to NHS. So, this party is absolutely dedicated to a fully free, publicly owned, publicly run National Health Service and the National Care Service alongside it. There are so many policy areas that we're going to have to develop, but it's also how we conduct ourselves and take things forward. Through the group and through the Peace and Justice Project, I put forward a private member's bill for an inquiry into Gaza, which policy, etc. The government blocked it, refused it, so we're holding our own independent inquiry for 2 days next week in Church House in Westminster. It'll be online so you can follow it and listen to the evidence that's put. And we'll use that as part of the campaign of exposing what government is doing. So my message is, in our own small way, our group of 6 independent MPs are doing our best to raise things in Parliament, but boards, working with people outside Parliament to get a very strong message across. Changing society and changing policies isn't just about electing people into office. It's about the power we bring to community, the strength we bring to community, and the accountabilities with which we bring to the people we've elected. And so I'm very determined that our party should be open, inclusive, democratic, but above all, grassroots campaigning and grassroots maintained. We are developing, we've got 700,000 people who have now registered in some form to join up to the party. We're doing a large number of public events around the country. This is the 9th I've done in a week on this. We're doing many, many more. The idea being for people to begin to understand what the fundamental message is, and then develop into what will become a branch of the party, leading up to a foundation conference, which we're hoping will be in November. And we'll then move on from there, and we'll be supporting candidates and contesting local elections next year and parliamentary elections in probably 28 or 29. But the important thing is that we give people hope and give people an opportunity. Because the media, if you can bear yourselves to watch it, will tell you that the whole issue, the only thing that ever matters in Britain at the moment is that the numbers of asylum seekers, refugees and immigration into our society. They never tell you how many work in the NHS, the contribution they make, and all the rest of it, all designed to be very deliberately divisive. Then Farage turns up and his mates, demonstrates outside asylum hotels, demonstrates against people, and creates havoc as a result. Some of the people that are attracted towards reform are actually very genuine people who have very, very real problems. Real problems of poverty, real problems of bad housing, real problems of excessive private sector rents, real problems of lack of council housing, all of those things. Those people are being exploited by Farage and by the far right. It's up to us, and we won't provide that alternative just by having internal meetings discussing direction, policy, structures or anything else. We will only provide those alternatives by an inclusive way of doing things. So I hope, again, I cannot say what the policies of the party will be because they're not decided yet, but I hope we will include in everything we do a method of working which is open, communicative and grassroots, and that every branch of the party would be required to hold at least one public event per month, which the local community can come to, be involved with, make their plans, make their proposals, so we become a cultural part of the lives of people all over the country in their local campaigns, as well as in the great issues such as Gaza and inequality and injustice and poverty within our society. We'll also use those meetings for the creative ideas about taxing the super rich, about taxing the big corporations, about municipal government, spending less on weapons, less on defence, and an international policy which is about peace and justice. But it is about us talking to each other and supporting each other. Sometimes, and occasionally, I've got enough to do, I scroll through social media to find out what I'm thinking. It's really weird, it's really strange. People out there, they've got all kinds of analyses of what I think, what I've done, what I do, what I will do. Okay? I'm sure they're really very rational, some of these ideas. What I do know, and what I have learned, is two things. One is, you can mobilise people, and we're doing that, we've done that, we will always do that, for justice, for peace, for equality, and there's a huge thirst for that. There is also a very, very powerful group of people who own the media, who run the establishment, who own the biggest businesses in our society, who do not want redistribution of wealth, who do not want peace, who do not want social justice, and the absolutely last thing they want is a mobilised political party. They want the cosy arrangement that you've got in Westminster, with three major parties with identical economic policies, identical international policies, identical attitudes to the poorest and most vulnerable in our society. We are going